Bring in our panel for this segment. White House correspondent for Reuters. You may recognize her from the Daily Briefing. Ayesha Rascoe is with us tonight. Hugh Hewitt, MSNBC political analyst and host of the appropriately named Hugh Hewitt Show, and Rick Stengel, back with us, remains with us. Ayesha, first of all, tell us about the Reuters story that takes a slice of this tonight on the same general topic of Jared Kushner, and then something that makes for a judgment from you. How do you think the White House, which is tonight the traveling White House, is going to react to tonight's wave?
Well, Reuters reported, had a great scoop that there were contacts between the Russians and Jared Kushner that have not been, or that had not been disclosed, that there had been these contacts and that the FBI is looking into whether there was any sort of quid pro quo where you would have the Russians saying, look, if you ease these sanctions, maybe we could help out on some business transactions. But that said, our story did report that there is, at this point, no evidence that these conversations were, that there was anything inappropriate going on, but they are being looked at. So that's what we reported. As far as how the White House will respond, we were also reporting that they're trying to set up this war room, and so that they're going to try to bring in maybe some people from the campaign officials and bring in others who might be able to help them to be more proactive and go more on the offense, because all these stories are coming out. The issue, of course, is that I guess Jared was also supposed to be helping out with the war room. So how he's going to help out when he's also the subject of some of these damaging stories is the question.
Hugh Hewitt, thank you for, again, agreeing to step into the breach. Your reaction to tonight's Washington Post story, if true, Jared trying to set up a communications channel.
Three things, Brian. A little history, a little irony, and a little perspective. It was February 21st, 1969, that a relatively obscure 31-year-old set up the first back channel with Soviet Ambassador Anatoly Dobrinin. That fellow's name was Henry Kissinger, and it was not known to the State Department. I note that Dr. Kissinger sat down with Donald Trump. I don't know if Jared Kushner was in the meeting in November and subsequently. So who knows where the idea of a back channel came from.
Hold on a second. Hang on. I'm going to call time out. Back channel is a diplomatic term of art. And that was efforts in the atomic age, especially in the Cold War, and Rick Stengel sitting right here at the table, a veteran of the State Department, aimed at a better world, a safer world, going around the bureaucracy and channels of communication that existed that could get muddled. So that is something quite different until we learn evidence that this was an effort toward a better and safer world for all. Rick Stengel, bear me out.
Well, yes, I think there's diplomacy and there's some kind of thing that might be nefarious. I mean, I thought the interesting point in the Reuters story is about, is there a quid pro quo between relaxing sanctions and having loans from Russian banks? That's actually a completely inappropriate conversation.
Hugh Hewitt, you may continue.
Well, I would agree with that. I want to find out what they talked about. I just point out that there is precedent for back channel, and 3 administrations in a row have attempted Russian resets. The irony, of course, is that the war room is being set up in part by Jamie Gorelick of Hale and Dorr. James St. Clair, who is Richard Nixon's special counsel, came from the old Hale and Dorr firm in Boston. That's the irony. And then the perspective, it's been 20 years since Mel Gibson's conspiracy theory came out, with his apartment full of maps and red lines and newspaper clippings. I'm beginning to think that there are some offices in mainstream media that have those kind of charts. There are lots of dots that people are connecting rather rapidly, but the MacGuffin in that film was, at the end, there was a conspiracy.
Hugh Hewitt, tougher question. How does the Trump agenda do next week on Capitol Hill when everybody's back?
Well, the agenda advanced with the confirmation of a multa par this week and the destruction of the so-called blue slip. That's very good on the judicial side. I think Mitch McConnell admitted also to Reuters he's got no current plan to get an Obamacare package out by August. I hope that changes. And the Speaker told me this week that we've got tax reform on the agenda in 2017. So I look at two tracks, Brian. I do not believe this helps, but I do believe it is moving forward. And I'd add one more thing. If the president wanted to cozy up to the Russians, the one thing he would not do is demand that the NATO allies would pony up their 2%. That's the last thing that the Russians wanted to hear an American president demand of his European allies, is their fair share of the defense of Europe against Russia.
At the same time, it was roundly proffered yesterday that the president's message left out Russia and, Rick Stengel, the view so many NATO members have of the clear, present, and renewed danger that Russia represents to them in 2017.
Again, I think he confuses it. Seems like he thinks that people are not paying their rent somehow, and he confuses that with what the 2% is. And frankly, it doesn't make a world of difference whether Latvia or Lithuania pay 1.5% or 2.5% or 2%. I mean, because America's GDP is so large, 2% of America's GDP overwhelms the contribution of everybody else. But the most important thing, as I said before, is the fact that he did not cite Article 5 of the NATO agreement, which is what everybody was looking for him to do.
Ayesha, before we scoot to a break, last word. This war room, and you have been among the news organizations reporting this, it could be staffed by these names we know who are also dealing with incoming subpoenas, to put it bluntly.
Well, and I think that's part of the issue with this. Is the Trump administration willing to go outside of its kind of loyalty circle and get an outsider for this war room? Because at this point, it seems like President Trump really is only comfortable with those people that he knows and that he feels are loyal to him. And does this situation call for people who are outside of that, who are outside of his circle?
Here's looking at you, Corey Lewandowski. Thank you all, Ayesha, Hugh, and Rick. Thank you.